Thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'd like to build on what Chuck was just talking about disruption and innovation. In fact, instead of disruption, we probably should say disruptions, because, you know, the music business, the publishing business, the financial services business, many others are being disrupted very, very quickly, and leaders are worried. Leaders are worried about the pace of change. We all know that business is accelerating. And I don't know about you, but I get up in the morning and I feel kind of like that guy in the rocket sled. You remember that guy whose face is sort of being peeled back by the forces of change? And, you know, it isn't just about change in your particular part of the business. I was speaking in Cincinnati a few weeks ago, and I saw this photograph on the wall. It's Cincinnati in 1848. And I thought about how quickly those steamboats were eliminated with the implementation of the diesel engine, the completion of the U.S. railroad network. Those steamships were just gone. But if you focus in on that image, you can see a bunch of other businesses that were changed too: the steam engine repair shop, the boiler yard, the steamboat painting company. They all went away too. So it isn't just about what's happening in your part of the business. It's about what's happening upstream and downstream from you. So I want to talk about who and what is likely to disrupt your business, and more importantly, what you can do about it. Right? So let's look first at forces of disruption. Chuck talked about many of those forces. I want to start with connectivity. We know very well what a huge disruptive force the internet was. And you know, it changed the world because information found its freedom. Information escaped. Information's being beamed to us all the time, and as consumers, we're empowered by it. We're bypassing brokers and agents and going direct. But if you think back to the beginning of the internet, information kind of flowed one way. It was a little bit up and a lot coming back. That's why the first page of Yahoo looked like this. The first page of Travelocity looked like that. There wasn't very much bandwidth. Remember that? You know? That's why things look like this, right? But even so, that limited amount of connectivity was great opportunity. And it disrupted the music business, maps, news, photography, directories, books. And then users began to create information. That changed things a lot, because it made information flow in two directions. So people started writing, and they started selling, and they started rating. My friend Rich Barton, who started Expedia, says if it can be rated, it will be rated. So buyer experiences are still shared, but no longer one-to-one over the backyard fence. Now it's one-to-many over the network on sites like TripAdvisor, where they have 130 million hotel reviews. Nobody goes anywhere without checking a review first. So that little one-way stream of data back when Bill Gates was on the teletype has moved into a rushing torrent of data created from all the devices that are passing information in two directions. And so that brings us to disruptive force number two, and that's big data. 90% of the world's data was created in the last 3 years. 80% of that is unstructured data. It's blogs, it's articles, it's videos, it's audio. And that stuff's hard to deal with. So that complexity equals another opportunity, the opportunity to simplify this huge new pile of data, to create systems of insight that tease insights out of all these data. Now, I'm having the pleasure of working with IBM Watson, one of the cognitive sort of AI systems that was talked about earlier. Our system called Wayblazer is working to make travel a whole lot easier and provide you insights on what you might do. Spark Cognition is doing the same thing by looking through billions of security incidents. North Face is doing it so you can say, hey, I'm going to go climb Mount Whitney, and it'll say, here's all the clothing that you need. IBM Watson is doing it directly in medicine, where it'll say things like 95% probability this is the right treatment for your disease. So systems of insight working on big data. Number three is cloud. Cloud's pretty simple. Instead of our own data center, we simply share a data center with lots of other people through AWS or IBM Cloud or others. Cloud's important to me because it's instantly available, insanely inexpensive, and infinitely scalable. And I guess we can say instantly available again because it's really important that we can get at that data so quickly. Now, then the convergence of these technologies allows us to do more interesting things. So if we take big data and we add cloud and we add connectivity, now we have the basis for IoT, right? And prescriptions say 38 billion IoT devices by 2020. And there are all kinds of devices from jet engines in the airline business where I've worked that are constantly connected, constantly giving us the data about performance, to pill bottles that tell you when to take your pill and tell your doctor if you didn't, to even people who are connected. I'm now part of the Internet of Things. A couple of weeks ago, I got one of those implanted medical devices so that every night the cloud gets a reception on how my heart is doing. I don't quite want to know exactly what all that says, but it's pretty cool that anybody can be part of the IoT. Even a new basketball from Wilson can track your shots automatically. So IoT, number 4. Number 5, disruption by algorithm. So we're seeing all kinds of the application of sophisticated algorithms. The Nest algorithm for its latest thermostat is so good that Commonwealth Edison in Chicago is giving away Nest thermostats to reduce the chance it'll have to build another power plant. Liberty Mutual is giving people a discount for installing the Nest smoke detector because it's constantly connected and it lowers their insurance costs by reducing fire risk. We know Facebook has algorithms instead of editors producing the news, right? We know that 60% of the trades on the New York Stock Exchange are now by algorithm. We know that blockchain is an amazing new algorithm providing security for financial transactions, the basis of Bitcoin, but all kinds of people are applying blockchain in very interesting ways to improve security of transactions. So here are 10 forces of disruption. And there are lots more. Of course, there's the genome and nanotechnology and quantum computing and Elon Musk with reusable rockets. There are lots more. But I think what's important more than just the forces are to remember that technique follows technology. Technique follows technology. We don't always know where raw technology will take us. And as we develop that technique, we begin to create new business models around the application of the technology. This quote was in the Harvard Business Review back in 2000, at the height of the internet bubble. Somewhere out there is a bullet with your name on it, shot by a competitor unknown and unborn, who will render your business obsolete. Good HBR quote, but I don't think it actually happened. But if you change one word and say business model obsolete, I think that probably did happen. We have hubs and ecosystems and metasearch. So Google doesn't produce information, they merely organize it and make massive amounts of money. Facebook, the biggest publisher in the world, doesn't write any articles. iTunes, a hub of music, makes more money from music than any combination of artists by giving you access. Kayak, give you access to flights. We sold the company for $1.8 billion. So hubs and ecosystems are really important, and they're creating more disruption. As TechCrunch said, Uber, the largest limo company, owns no vehicles. Facebook, the largest publisher, develops no content. Alibaba, the largest retailer, has no inventory. Airbnb, the largest hotel company, owns no real estate. What do they own? They own the edge. They own the edge. Location, location, location used to be about First and Main, but today, location is about the edge of the glass. It's about where the customer is, whether they're in the store or whether they're home relaxing on the couch or lying in bed. It's the edge that's important. And of course, the edge is all about apps. It's all about mobile. Apps rule the edge. Taco Bell had an article recently where they said, you know, we're getting a 20% higher average order value from a customer that's using an app while they're in line than the customer who talks with a clerk. Why is that? Well, because I'm not rushed and I can really see the whole menu, okay? Pinterest has figured out the edge. They spent $700 million building an audience. They finally figured out how to make money. They're putting buy buttons all over Pinterest. Amazon is pushing closer to the edge with Amazon Dash. You've probably seen the little Wi-Fi button where you can order more laundry detergent just by pushing that little button. And now they built an API, so pretty soon your washing machine will simply order its own detergent from Amazon, of course, right? And actually, they're already doing it. Brother printers are ordering their own ink. The, what is that stupid thing called? The Brita. The Brita orders its own filters, right? So people are pushing the edge. UPS is worried about the edge. They're worried about additive manufacturing, 3D printers. So they're putting 3D printers in UPS stores, so you'll need UPS to bring that product home. But Amazon's doing one better. They now have a patent for a 3D printer in a truck. So it's making the item while it's delivering it to your house. That's pretty close to the edge, right? The competition is about getting closer and closer to the edge. Penny and Mint and Yodlee are at the edge in finance. They're taking information from banks, from credit card companies, putting it together, giving you better information than you get from those institutions. And Jamie Dimon complained about it this week in an editorial that they're taking his data. He said, Silicon Valley is coming, right? He's worried about his own data. Well, wake up. Why isn't his data good enough? He's not moving fast enough. He's being disrupted by others. So what do we do about disruption? Do we hide? Do we try to hold it back? Probably not a good strategy. You probably know that Kodak invented the digital camera. They just never developed it. And by the way, the day Kodak went bankrupt, Instagram raised $1 billion, right? Why can't we change? Remember, from your perspective, it's a disruption. But from their perspective, it's an innovation. It kind of depends on where you sit. And somewhere out there is a Silicon Valley entrepreneur who's looking at your business, and his team is saying, your margin is our opportunity. And they don't have MBAs, you know. They're not about administration. They're small. They have GSDs. It's get stuff done, right? They're moving fast. It's a small team. And one of the ways to think about what they're doing is to put your business plan on a Rubik's Cube. So take this one. This is Amazon traditional. They bought books, stored books, financed books. Then they got customers and sold them and set the price and bill and collect, right? And then Jeff said, maybe we should sell used books. And everybody said, well, that's pretty crazy. And he said, well, look, we won't have to buy the book, store the book, ship the book. We won't have to set the price and finance the inventory. We can just do these 4 things and add some awesome software. And guess what? Half their business is selling other people's products today through other people's stores. And the used book business is about as big as the new book business, and it's almost as profitable by cutting out some of those other things. New models sometimes destroy more value than they create, but the difference goes to the consumer, and that's why they're catching on so fast. We talked about Uber earlier. Uber looked at the business of limos and said, well, we don't want to own cars, license cars, and service cars. The market enforces our standards. The drivers find us. So we'll just do these 4 things and add some awesome software, and they're the biggest limo company in the world. Airbnb, exactly the same. Hey, we're not going to find hotels. Hotels find us. We're not going to provide security, manage the property, hire the staff. We're not going to set prices. The market enforces our standards by reviewing us. So we'll do these 4 things and add some awesome software and become the biggest hotel company in the world. Put your value on a Rubik's Cube, because these guys are doing it with less capital and more speed. But you say, hey, this is not fair. I have customers, I have products, I have factories, logistics. I have an awesome brand, you know. But maybe you're not easy to deal with. Maybe you're not as simple as Uber or Airbnb. Remember the new mantra in Silicon Valley? Step 1, install software. There is no step 2. Just step 1. It's drop dead easy. So don't let some kid in the valley come eat your lunch. You have to figure out how to own the assets and the edge. Because if you don't own the edge, you don't own the customer, and you will be disrupted. You have to think about what is the new model. Now, there are a lot of ways to approach this. When I was at American Airlines, we invented yield management for airlines, how to get the most out of a ticket. And in IT, we approached our CEO and we said, we should sell this to other companies. And marketing said, no way. This is the jewel. Don't give it away. And our chairman said, sell it. Sell it. Keep a few jewels for us, but sell it. Because if we don't do it, somebody else will. Why don't we make money out of it, even though we're an airline? And we created a very large business selling airline software. Recently, I spoke to a company called Hartford Steam Boiler. They are a 160-year-old insurance company still doing fine. They started out insuring boilers after the Civil War. You know what they do today? They still do boilers, but they also do cyber insurance. And they've invested in the Internet of Things. They stepped back and said, how can we live in these new markets and provide a similar product, right? So let's figure out how to turn disruption off. What's holding you back from dealing with the disruptors in your market? Because objects in the mirror are closer than they appear, right? Silicon Valley is coming. Half of US executives are dissatisfied with the state of innovation in their company. I'd say look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. What's the issue? Is it risk? Well, how do you think about risk? Do you avoid it, reduce it, transfer it, or accept it? Now, you're in the reduction of risk business, I know, but we have to accept some risk in the world of disruption. I started my career as a receptionist in a travel agency 45 years ago. 6 months in, my manager said, let's leave and go do a startup. And we left. And you might think that was a big risk, but really it was a small risk. I was 21 years old. I lived in an apartment. I was single. I wasn't making much money anyway. So we left. And we turned out, the company we built turned into the 20th largest travel agency in the country in 5 years. Small risk, big reward. And then I went to my second startup that sold mini computers to travel agents. 6 months in, that company was sold to American Airlines. Suddenly I was in a big company. And I started moving up the corporate ladder, director, VP of applications, VP of operations, and I was CIO. When I was CIO, I decided to take a huge risk. I was married, I had 2 kids, a mortgage, a big salary. And I said, you know that little online product we have? Can I just quit being CIO and go do that? And that turned into Travelocity.com that we took public for $1.2 billion. Big risk, big reward. Now, since that time, I've made a number of small bets. I've been on 13 public and private boards. I'm an author, a consultant, a venture capitalist. If I look back at those boards, some of those companies shrank. Some of them died totally and flamed out. And the rest of them created about $12 billion in value, taking continuous risk. Now I'm all in again. With all my time, all my treasure, I have a new startup called Wayblazer. And people say, well, Terry, do you have to do that? No, I don't have to do that. Hell, I'm on Medicare. I don't have to do that. I want to do that. So we got this new company based on IBM Watson. We're having a ball. I'm going to the board meeting tomorrow. I don't know if it'll work, but I have the opportunity to screw up the travel business for a 3rd time. How awesome is that, right? So take the first risk. You've got to take risks to live in the world of disruption. Now, look in the mirror again, because you may also be the problem, because innovation that happens from the top down is orderly but dumb. And innovation that happens from the bottom up is chaotic but smart. I've learned that listening to the person on the line, the person in customer service, the programmer, that's where you learn about innovation. Travelocity started paging people when their flights were late in 1996. That idea came from a programmer, from a customer service person who kept answering the phone and said, can't we page people? We started selling emails, sending emails to people to show you when the fare went down. Nobody had ever done that before. That came from a programmer. Listening to people at the bottom. But to do that, you have to break through the boson layer. Now, we're not talking global warming, not the ozone layer. This is the boson layer. The boson layer is the impenetrable layer of middle management that stops good ideas from moving upward. And you're laughing because you know it exists, right? So it's not the middle manager's fault. They aren't rewarded for change. They aren't rewarded for risk. So you've got to reach down through that boson layer and make it disappear. You do that as a leader by reaching down and saying, this is Bob's idea, we're going to try it. This is Barbara's idea. This is John's idea, it's failed. We're giving John another chance. And as soon as people understand that you really want change, then those ideas will begin to bubble up and the boson layer will go away. It's your job to go get those ideas. Now, you might be being held back by the pinball machine. What's the corporate pinball machine? Well, if you look out at Silicon Valley, you probably envy the fact they can make decisions really quickly. I mean, there are only 2 of them. You know, it's not very hard. But if you put out an idea in a big corporation, it works like this. You put out the idea, and it gets going, and then marketing has a few questions, and then IT might have a few questions, and then you know, you're getting a little discouraged, and then, of course, it's service and manufacturing, and they have a few more ideas, and you're getting pretty tired, and if you get through that, well, don't think it's over, because now it's finance and legal. And, well, what do? It's just game over, right? You know that's the way of the world. How do you beat that? You have to come together. You can make better decisions in Silicon Valley with all those departments working together, but you have to come together faster than you ever have and add value, not create barriers. Because you do have the factory, you do have the brand, and you have the people in this industry who really know how to make it work. But you got to move faster than you ever have, because there's so many of those little guys, they will overwhelm you. My innovation is your disruption, right? But remember, disruption and innovation are just 2 sides of the same coin. It depends on where you sit. So you can act, right? You don't have to be disrupted. Stop being disruptive and start being innovative. So let's talk now about turning on innovation. So let's review. But we talked about 10 forces of disruption, and the forces are less important than how you turn disruption off. Think about what is holding you back from competing with all these little guys in Silicon Valley. Is it risk? Is it the boson layers, the pinball machine, holding on to old models? What's holding you back? Remember, disruption and innovation are 2 sides of the same coin. It just depends where you sit. So sit on the side of innovation.